What if the reason your ideas aren't landing isn't your content, but your communication? Today, I'm joined by Lucille Ossai, award-winning communication coach, Lagos Business School faculty, and author of Influence and Thrive. Lucille went from stay-at-home mum to global authority on influence. And in this episode, she reveals the 3 rules of powerful communication, why writing is your hidden leadership advantage, and how to be heard even if you are an introvert. If you've ever felt like your work should speak for itself and yet you're still overlooked, this conversation will change the way you show up, write, and speak. Welcome to Present Influence, the professional speaking show for expert speakers, coaches, and communicators who want to deliver more impact, influence, and inspiration. My name's John Ball, your guide on this journey to mastery-level communication and presentation skills. Welcome, Lucille Ossai. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me, John.
It's a real delight. And when we spoke before, it was hard to narrow down all the things, so many things I would love to talk to you about, but we'll try and get to the most important things. Anything else we have time for, we'll get to that as well. But I know that you've been shaping young hearts and minds and helping to teach the skills of influence and communication to young people. Why has that been so important for you?
Really, really important because I stumbled into the field quite by accident many years ago. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And I all just used to wonder why things weren't right. I would watch the television, I watch interviews, I would just see complaints online. I just, communication is not really the way it was supposed to be. So I just started following trends. I started researching. And the more I went deep into the communication angle, the more interested and intrigued I became. It just took off from there. I started a blog, started blogging, researching, and I just grew extremely passionate about it. I became almost obsessed with effective communication. If I look back now to the point where I started onto this time, I've just realized that communication is now critical to effectiveness. As a professional, as a student, as a leader, it's one of those skills that is increasingly getting more importance as time goes on, especially in the age of AI, with this fear of AI taking our jobs. One thing relevant to professionals, executives, and leaders, regardless of their industry or their field. So it's just something that I believe everybody can hone. And I hope I get the opportunity, because just like you said, there's just so much to talk about, but I hope I get the opportunity to share tips, tricks, and practices that empower people to communicate more effectively so they can go ahead and do all those great things and achieve great feats in their careers or in the business.
I wonder for you, what difference has working on communication skills made for your own life?
Incredible benefits. I'm an introvert by nature. And when I say this in my training sessions or in class or in front of leaders, I hear gasps and people are like, no way. I was like, yes, it's true. Those who really know me, I'm an introvert. But I realized that even for people who are a bit reserved and on the quieter side, if you're able to use communication to advance your ideas, share your knowledge, and to just advocate for things that are important to you, you would get noticed. It doesn't necessarily matter if you do not know anybody, if you don't have connections. And for me, that has been an eye-opener, especially in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And I'm not just in Nigeria, but I reference Nigeria because that's where I'm currently based. Who you know usually opens doors. But what I've found is that if you're able to speak effectively, and more importantly, if you're able to write convincingly, people take notice. I have been able to connect with incredible people across the globe, people that I have considered beyond my level, my social network. I've been able to reach out to them, connected with many on LinkedIn. A couple of those people that I'm really friendly with, even on social media, on LinkedIn, I have never met in person. Over the years, I've followed their work, shared my insights, and broadened my network. That has been really important to me. And it has helped me to position myself beyond the confines of my region. I'm able to get on international podcasts, and I've been given the opportunity to share my expertise and techniques with a wider audience. It's helped me sharpen my visibility, it's helped increase my knowledge, and it's also helped me in my work as a communications trainer and coach and facilitator. So personally, It's been fantastic.
I can certainly relate to all of that, having had very similar experiences myself. Let me ask you, we'll talk about communication and having effective communication. There are lots of people who get these trainings or they'll buy a book, but never really do the implementation side of it. So they have a bit of the knowledge, but they don't really put stuff into practice. What, in your mind, should effective communication look and be like when it is implemented?
Okay, it should be clear. The goal of your communication should be clear to the recipient or the audience, and you should be able to inspire them to take some action. Usually when you communicate with somebody, you want them to feel a certain way or do something. This could be ranging from things that would benefit you or benefit a community. For business communication, there's usually a goal for your communication, and that's what separates business communication from other kind of communication. There's a goal. You're not just communicating because you want to hear the sound of your voice or see your name in print. There's usually a purpose for which you're communicating. That purpose has to be clear. So the recipient or the audience should get the same understanding that you meant to convey. Technically, it's called shared meaning. Yeah. What you are communicating should be the same as what the other person is perceiving. If there's a misalignment, then you're not communicating effectively. This is a point because I've often gotten questions like, oh, is it really my fault? I've sent an email. I was very specific. I was very clear, but the person did not read the email. It's not my fault. I wrote as plainly as I could have. Communication is something that should get you a result or bring you closer to a goal.
So let me ask you this, though, because communication can easily be misunderstood. I ascribe to the principle that the meaning of communication is what gets understood, not necessarily what is meant to be conveyed. Would you perhaps pick up, or what would you encourage people to look at to pick up whether their communication is being understood in the right way or not?
Okay. So is the person acting in the expected way? For example, if you send me an email and just say, I would appreciate this project being done by 2 p.m. Thanks a lot and best regards, and then you go. You haven't given me any call to action. You're just mentioning what you would like. So I could read it. I was like, okay, I'm on track. I'm sure it's going to be completed, but I don't feel that I need to communicate that to you. So I might not even respond. I just think, oh, I'm working on it. I'm sure it's going to be completed. And I'm working at it on my desk. Meanwhile, you are expecting some sort of feedback from me to let you know that I'm on the right track. If you send the email, like, Lucille, I really appreciate it if you could send me an update on the project by 4 p.m. Yeah, then I will see that, okay, he wants me to comment on it. He's not just asking how it's going. He wants me to comment on it. Be specific, because a lot of people are inundated with information. Ensure that your emails are short. I cannot stress this enough. Get to the point and make sure they're short, in shorter sentences with spaces in between so that there is no confusion. This is one of the ways that we could make sure that our communication is clear.
Yeah. And I particularly like that advice because that's how I tend to do my emails anyway.
Yeah, I know, that's quite brave.
It's my natural style, Lucille. I'm one of those people that has to go back and add in the niceties afterwards because I tend to just be like straight down to it. Here's what I want. Right. Here's what I want you to do. All right. So one of the things I'm getting from that as well, clear, concise, short, let's have it as crystal clear as possible, and be very clear about what we want the other person to do.
Absolutely. Put that all in a simple framework. Call it the 3 rules of effective communication. The first rule is know your audience. That is the number 1 rule for communication in general. Because the way you communicate with me will probably differ from the way you communicate with your peers, people close to you, or people from different regions. You touched on the niceties, so there's the cultural norms you have to be aware of as well. Sometimes there appears to be expected and unintended tension because cultural norms are not addressed or considered in communication, in writing and in one-on-one interpersonal communication. It's really important that we all take a moment to know just a little bit more information who our audience is. So that's rule number 1. Then rule number 2 is in 3 parts. I say use the 3 beacons, and I call them beacons because they light the way your communication should go. So ask yourself, is my communication simple? Can a 12-year-old understand it? It doesn't really matter what the topic is, but can they grasp what I'm trying to say? Then we touched on the second beacon. Is it brief or concise? Does it get straight to the point? Essential in this age of distraction and different things vying for attention. And the third one is it clear? Now, clarity is often mistaken for simplicity, but I added an extra point, and that is for your communication to be clear, there needs to be a call to action. Basically, what we just talked about. So, what do you want the recipient or the audience to know, to feel, or to do? Know, feel, do premise. Yeah. And if you are able to do that for ensuring the three beacons are addressed in some way, your communication is already above average. So that's rule number 2. Then rule number 3 is feedback. This is critical. This is the difference between somebody perceiving you as professional and trustworthy and somebody just thinking that, you know what, this person is just someone I do not want to deal with. And for your feedback to be effective, it has to be timely and it has to be factual. And you see, I came up with these 3 rules out of frustration, basically. I just noticed over the years, different issues kept on cropping up. And I just said, wouldn't it be nice to just pull all these things together and just come up with some sort of framework, a simple framework. Everybody knows these elements, but just put it in a nice package with a bow and just say, these are the 3 rules. Please just ensure you address these rules when you're communicating. Rule number 1, know your audience. Rule number 2, keep your communication simple, brief, and clear. Rule number 3, give feedback and ask for feedback. Ensure your feedback is timely and factual. If you're able to do these things, you would automatically be seen as somebody who is credible, professional, and somebody that people would want to collaborate with.
I love that you're saying these are all very easy to apply things. There's nothing particularly complicated about what you're saying. I think we could all do this. And just in doing these things, you're already going to have elevated your ability to communicate above the average, which doesn't say a lot about average levels of communication, unfortunately. But it does say rising above that isn't so difficult. Even just some of these things will take you to more noticeable, more influential communication, more effective as well.
Absolutely.
I love that. And you lay that out really clearly. It's a nice framework to work with as well. We'll have some show notes for people to summarize some of this, to review it as well. But what does influence mean to you and why is it important for communication?
What I've noticed about influence is that you don't need to be a big name. With all respect to the masters of influence, the Cialdini, Robert Cialdini, and so on, who have written, made it to be a science-backed technique. I believe, and this is the beauty of improving your communication skills, working on your communication skills. I believe that it is easy for you to influence people if you are able to communicate persuasively and intentionally. And it doesn't really matter if you have access. This is something I've learned as well. It doesn't matter if you have access to the inner circles of big brands or big names. But if you communicate consistently, people begin to take notice. And as time goes on, you begin to hone those skills. So if you're speaking up in the team meeting, for example, and you're a bit introverted, use this example all the time because that's how I am. You have a brilliant idea, but you think, oh, well, I'm not really an executive, a new entrant, or a low-level staff. Or you're able to raise your hand and say what you consider important or give a suggestion, and you stand up, project your voice, and say that I've heard a lot of brilliant recommendation, but I would like us all to just consider one point. This is what I think will move it forward. You could be speaking for 30 seconds, but you've made your point. People would take notice. They begin to say, oh, who is that lady over there? Where is he from? What department is he? It makes sense. It's just about knowing how to present your ideas in a very clear, compelling manner that helps to create influence. And the influence could start small. It could be like, invite that person to a meeting, or what are your ideas? Or do you mind giving a presentation? Before you know it, you are called into those circles that you would otherwise not have had access to, just by the strength of your communication skills. Because what you said, maybe somebody else had the same idea, but did not communicate it as effectively or as persuasively as, and this is something that really opened doors. If you commit to it, the results will actually shock you and it can become really scary. So ask yourself, how far do I want to go? If you're ambitious, I want all doors to be open to me, then that's going to happen. But if not, then you have to decide, how much do I want to speak up? How many times do I want to send an email? Your colleagues will begin to ask your advice and send you information. Then your growth really depends on how far you want to go. Influence is you being able to communicate your ideas in a way that will give you greater visibility, will help you collaborate with others, will get you the desired results. And communication is one of those things you can use to increase your influence.
Absolutely. This is bringing up a few things for me. And one of them is that I'm aware, and I've been guilty of this myself, but I've certainly seen it in many people. That is actually a prime example of this. Many people think that their work should speak for itself rather than them speak for themselves. And you get that. And generally it doesn't. People think, oh, well, they don't really speak up. They don't really hear from them. They just keep their head down. They're probably quite happy. Maybe they don't care about wanting leadership positions, just doing lots and lots of work, and we'll leave them doing that. Whereas speaking up might actually make a bigger impact, as you suggest. My experience in business has been sometimes the people who speak up are speaking up for the sake of speaking up. And sometimes the people who speak up do actually have something to say. Do you think we should just speak, they're speaking up no matter what, or should we also be sure that we have something of value to say?
I think it's really important you have something of value. Otherwise, don't really say anything. I've coached people in the past who have had that concern, quieter females, the female professionals, and they're terrified. They had brilliant ideas, but they were terrified. And I said, okay, here's the thing. You're ambitious. You want to be taken seriously. You want to go to the next level. You have to speak up. But here's what I want you to do. Start small. That is a point. And I got this fantastic method from communication expert Joel Schwartzberg, who I'm connected with on LinkedIn, and who wrote this brilliant book, Get to the Point. Just having a clear point and knowing how to communicate that point in any setting is immediately going to make people take notice. So you can imagine just having a series of points in a series of meetings, and from time to time, just speak up and just having the confidence, even if your voice shakes, because your voice will shake if you're not accustomed to speaking. And you could experience all those symptoms, dry mouth, racing heart, and so on and so forth. But don't let those physiological reactions get in the way of making a clear point. If you've been holding on to that point and you're just waiting for the right time to give that point in a meeting, and then somebody else says the exact thing you wanted to say, don't panic. Just don't repeat what you've just heard. You could put a new spin on it, or John had that brilliant point. I would just like to add something to what he just said, or give an example of why John's point is important. If nothing else comes to mind, do a recap. At the end of the meeting, say, John has said something, Lucille has said Y, John has said Z. Can we all agree on the right way forward? When is our next meeting? Do we all decide on emailing suggestions at a certain time? Just say something.
Yeah.
So that's one way you can train yourself to do it. If that is still daunting, or you feel you're already a good speaker, but not as good a writer, now is the time to hone your writing skills. Start small. Adhere to the rules of effective communication I mentioned. So if I'm saying there are three things I wanted to mention, and I mentioned one and I mentioned two, and I can't remember the third. The third thing is just to stress that the first two things are important. And this leads me to the next point I want to make about why we should continue. Most people wouldn't mind you taking a pause of just a few seconds to collect your thoughts. But it will become really obvious if you start to stare at the ceiling. I've seen this happen. People will, what was I about to say? Well, it all becomes obvious. But if you take a pause and just say, and sometimes when I'm in a session, I actually even invite the audience. So I'm saying something and there's a particular word. I'm like, bear with me. There's this word, and I describe the word and get everybody involved. And they're like, oh yeah, you mean that? I'm like, that's the one. And then we continue. So I think people are really gracious and they would understand that these things happen. But what you don't want is to go blank and then you don't know how to recover. And then you are there standing for 2 painful minutes trying to remember the point you're about to make, and it doesn't come. And that actually diminishes your credibility. So take a breather, pause, say the next thing, and just try to make sure that you link the next point with what you've just said. Even if it's not the original point you wanted to say.
Yeah.
And this
I
is good practice.
Yeah, I would add to that as well that if your communication hasn't gone well, whether it is a question meeting or a presentation or anything like that, there's still a win there. The fact that you got up and did it, the fact that you put yourself forward, don't diminish the win that you had. Maybe it wasn't great. Maybe you didn't get it. We want things to go better than they do. But you would be diminishing the win that you had, that you put yourself out there. And sometimes when we put ourselves out there, we get shot down or it doesn't go well. That's part of the process, part of the learning journey. You see it as that. The next time you do it, it will be better. But don't think that because it didn't go well that time that you shouldn't do it again. I think that would be the worst thing you could take away, right?
And I had a really important, something just came to mind. Every year at the Lagos Business School, we have an annual speaking competition. It's called a mini skipping competition. The MBA students from the cohorts compete. And sometimes we have it in a collaboration with other business schools in Africa and beyond. Last year, sometimes the MBAs, they divide them into groups and they give them an industry to work on. So they are really smart people, these MBAs, they're sharp as nails. So it could be of the oil and gas industry, it could be on the banking industry and so on. So I remember this group, I can't remember the industry, but there was a lady, an MBA student that was so nervous. She was presenting with her colleagues. I think she was the second person. There were about 3 of them. And you could hear her voice shaking as she stumbled and stuff like that. And I just kept on staying in my mind because I was in the audience. I had coached some of them. So I kept on saying, just stick with it. I was really rooting for it. Just finish, stick with it and everything. She managed to finish her bit, stumbled across her words. The audience applauded and people kept on saying, and even in the audience, I could hear people saying, oh gosh, she was so nervous, but well done. She was fantastic. After the presentation, I spoke to the lady and she said, gosh, like that was really terrible. I said, no, but well done. You finished. And you were still able to get your point across. It can only get better. What really impressed me were people in the audience who didn't know her. They were applauding and I could hear them saying, oh gosh, that must have been really difficult. What I took away from that experience is that the audience is on your side. The audience, the majority of them, are on your side and they're rooting for you. So no matter how bad an experience you have, stick to it to the bitter end, learn from it. People realize how daunting it is to get up to speak. Everybody has that fear. Professionals have all their routines and they have processes that help them to deal with the nerves. But like you said, putting yourself out there would really help. And the more you do so, it may not really go away, but the easier it gets.
Like myself, I'm a more natural introvert. And there are only people who don't believe that because I do all the podcasting and speaking. I do stand-up comedy and all this stuff. My tendency is I like quiet time. I like to have time by myself and I don't get particularly energized. I like being in big groups now and again, but I have to limit it. I think I've moved myself more to being ambivert. I'm somewhere more in the middle with a tendency towards introversion.
Right.
I think many people are. The reality is the more we do stuff, the more we put ourselves out there, people understand how hard this stuff is for the most part. And they will applaud because most of them can't imagine themselves doing that. So they do see, all right, you've done something that I don't think I could ever do. That's worthy of applause. It's not like a New York comedy club where you're going to get booed off the stage. This is very different. People will support it. The worst critic we're ever going to get is inside our heads. We will always be our own.
We are so self-critical that we think worse of our performance than we actually were.
Absolutely.
And some of the things you think people would have noticed, they're like, no, I didn't notice that. I just noticed, you're a bit, but no, I didn't. And you're like, you really didn't notice X, Y, Z.
I was so similar doing things on a comedy. I'll get up and do a routine. It'll be like 5-10 minutes on stage or whatever. When I go off stage, people have laughed, people have clapped. But a few minutes later, people have mostly forgotten what it is all about. They're not thinking about that anymore. They're watching the next act or they're enjoying the drink and playing to their friends. Whereas me, I'm thinking about it for hours afterwards, or that joke didn't go as well as I thought, or I could have landed, or maybe I should have tried it this way. And I'm the one who's going to obsess over it and criticize myself. Yeah. We all do it, and it's natural. We shouldn't punish ourselves, but just be aware you are probably perceived much more highly than by others than you are doing for yourself. Because I think some of us feel that the external voices are going to be negative as well. And they really are.
No.
You talk about something that I don't see a lot of actually, and I think it's important. I don't see a lot of people talking about writing skills when it comes to effective communication, but you do. So I'd love to hear about why you focus on that. And you've already mentioned a little bit about how we can improve our email writing skills. Why is this so important? And what are the things that you recommend people do to improve their writing skills?
Okay, so writing, business writing to me, I think my skills in business writing were what I was known for. And it's really funny because in my first job, right out of university, I worked at a foreign embassy in the business section, and I had to do a lot of templates. I had to write a lot of reports and so on. It's just something that I worked on and it became easier. I didn't do a lot of speaking, but I did a lot of writing. So when I landed the job at Lagos Business School, I think this year will make it as the communications coach. I had done some training here and there, but I never really tackled the writing. And it was like a baptism by fire. I scaled through the interview process where I had to do the presentation. That was fine. And in my first session, I would always remember this. In my first session, my mentor, person I was reporting to, told me, oh, you're just going to facilitate a session with the MBAs. I was like, okay, no problem. I walk into the class and it's packed. This was long before COVID. It was packed. So I went there and he told me, oh, no, I'll be in the room. I'll be at the back. Have no fear. If you have any problems, I'll come and help you out. So I was like, okay, he's at the back. I could see him. But then I noticed midway, he just left the room. And I was really, really nervous. I had prepared and everything. I started to talk and I started to write. And I went back to him afterwards and I accused him. I was like, oh, you abandoned me. He said, look, you're a communications coach, not just a business writing coach. And that's why I started to build the skills of writing more. What I say is that because of the competition in the business world, everybody at some point would speak. But a lot of people don't write. And it's really, really strange. But we know we write emails every day. Apart from emails, many people don't really focus on the writing. If you are working in the back, I think they call it the back end or the back office, you're technical or you're accountant or you're lawyer or something like that, you find that unless you make a serious effort to improve your writing skills, you would end up not really writing. It's just one of those skills you think, oh, I can do it, until you have to start doing it consistently. This is what I have experienced, especially with the executive MBAs. These are people that are super sharp, very intelligent. But when it comes down to the writing, I get comments like, oh gosh, the last time I had to really write essays or articles was when I was in university or when I was in secondary school. Over time, people just concentrated on their technical skills and did less and less writing. Not that they couldn't write, but they were not put in positions where they had to write consistently and persuasively. So that became a trend that I noticed. And then I found out also that a lot of people don't read. And there's a correlation between reading well-written material and your writing. According to science, the more you read and expose yourself to it, the better you get at writing. What I've noticed personally is that when you read well-written materials, you begin to notice structures, you begin to notice grammar, the way grammar is used and manipulated and broken and still used in persuasive ways. You begin to notice expressions, and then all these things end up seeping into your writing over time, making you a better writer. Even before I landed the job at the Lagos Business School, already blogging for about 6 or 8 years, and I was blogging every month, even before I got formally employed. And I noticed the difference in my skill. It became sharper, I became more confident and all that. What I tell people is that if you want to get the attention of important people, you may not even get the opportunity to speak, but write. They would notice very good writing because so few people write well. It's amazing. That is the one way you can differentiate yourself. And the more you do it, the better you get. It starts small, but don't just rely on emails. You can start a blog. I tell everybody, start a blog. And they're like, yeah, really? I say, yeah, start a blog. It doesn't matter if nobody reads it. Just choose a topic you're passionate about and choose a schedule and stick to it. So you could decide to blog once a month. That is fine. You could decide to do it twice a week. That is fine. But blog consistently and write to the best of your ability. Write as though the New York Times, for example, or a reputable magazine would pay you to publish your article. So that's the thing. That's the point I stress. I said, don't just write, because if you're just writing and you're not challenging yourself, then you're not improving. But write intentionally, check your grammar, check the structure and all that, and just do that consistently. You would see an improvement, and that will help you.
But I personally, it's funny that I hadn't really thought about it that much until this conversation. But for me, writing is something that has helped me not just to discover my writing voice, but to discover my voice as a speaker as well.
Yes.
To help me figure out
Yes.
my own opinions, my own decisions. Like very often, we spend so much time being told what to think these days and given opinions that we rarely spend much time developing our own. We can just
Yeah,
cherry pick
absolutely.
from the ones around us. Whereas when you
Absolutely.
actually start working on your own thoughts and feelings and opinions about things, you really do start to find your own voice, your own style of writing and expression. And that is such a critical thing. I haven't focused on it that much before, but I can completely understand why you do.
Yeah.
It is probably an element that I might well even look at bringing into my own programs because of understanding how important that is. Here's my question for you, I guess. We both understand the value of finding your own voice, but for those people who maybe sort of thinking, well, I could just get on ChatGPT and get that to do it all for me.
Yes. Yeah.
What would you say to encourage them to this?
This is a fantastic question, especially now that business schools around the world have come to realize that they have to prepare the graduates and participants for a world where they can use ChatGPT or any other AI tools. But here's my thing, and this is the same advice I give to people when I say read books and don't just listen to audiobooks. Because when you read, you begin to notice constructions, you begin to notice all those things and your vocabulary increase. And I say, please learn how to write and focus on writing and improving your own writing skills to the point that it becomes easier for you to break rules and to know how to use ChatGPT to enhance your writing. If you do it the other way around, you will never hone your writing skills. And if you're confused about the kind of tone of voice or persona you want to present to the world. So it's a little bit like grammar. Know the rules of grammar, then know when you know how to break them. But you have to know the rules because there are some grammatical rules that you cannot break as a professional. For example, and we're talking about business writing, your name has to be capitalized. That's a grammatical rule. It's a proper noun. It must be capitalized. That is one rule you should not break. So take time to build your writing skills. And how do you do that? There are really only two ways to become a better writer. Two simple ways. When I tell them that, they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, really. Read well-written material. This is critical. Read novels, read articles, read opinion pieces. Just make sure they are written well and you have a whole selection. Read and then write. That's it. Read well-written material. Read beyond your field. So I'm a communication person. If I only read about communication, then I'm limiting myself. But if I read extensively, then I begin to notice different things. Not only will I become more knowledgeable, but I begin to notice different styles. When I'm writing, I just pull, and this is something you do without realizing it. It all seeps into your mind and translates into your writing. Yeah. Some expressions I use, I know for a fact that maybe 2-3 years ago, I never used those expressions. How I came to start using them, I do not know, but I know it is somewhere, somehow, some material I've come across the way, something I've read or something other people use. And I thought, well, I like that expression. And I put my own twist on it and basically, assimilated it into my writing.
It's inevitable that we will assimilate. I think that's all good advice. The quality reading, not just audiobooks, but actual reading, great advice. And doing the practical writing skills, all like the Renaissance person skills, the stuff that really does make you potentially stand out. Is like, well, if you want to blend in with everyone else, do it the lazy way. Let AI do it all for you. But if you actually want to say something worth saying and have your own takes on things and be able to write really well and communicate really well, it's going to take doing it the hard way. People don't like to hear this, but the thing is, it's worth doing. That's the reality of it. It will never get you to the top levels.
Absolutely. Writing has opened doors for me. Yeah, people have been able to reach through my writing. I've been able to challenge some high authorities and all that. And not because I influence or anybody, but just because I was able to craft. And writing well will get you noticed. You might not get the desired results, but you will definitely get a response. Tell anybody, if everything else fails and you need to make a point or you need to open some doors or you need something to move, then you should write. I've written to different organizations. I've written to different people. When I was writing my first book, I said, okay, I'm really ambitious. Who am I going to contact to invite to interview. And I thought, who do I really admire? Some other people admired. Some declined. Some said, okay, COVID, we're just getting into COVID and everything. Oh, they couldn't. And I said, no, the Obamas, to me, I think Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, they're among my top 10 communicators. So I said, you know what, I'm going to write. So I wrote to the Obamas. I wrote to Michelle Obama. Wrote, had my whole story, had my pitch. Of course, she declined, or her press people declined. But you know what? I saved that note. From time to time, I look at it. The fact that they even responded to me was more than enough. And it wasn't a one-liner. It was a considerate, somebody took time to respond. Or like, I would like to think that not everybody who writes would get that kind of response. To me, that was just an example. And I usually say sometimes at the end of the writing program, once you know the rules and commit to the discipline of writing, there is nobody on the planet you would not be able to write to. And I mean that sincerely. You get to that point whereby you're like, okay, they say write to Donald Trump. You're like, okay, Donald Trump. Okay. You analyze him, do your research. You have one level knows. The first rule of communication, know your audience. You know what is important to Donald Trump. If you know what's important to him, there's a way you're going to craft that note and you would get a response. I'm glad you brought up the point of the writing. And why my book, I tackled different communication themes. I did the non-verbal, I did the business writing, I did the public speaking. But out of the three, if you commit to writing well, it takes a lot of work. I've been doing it for over 20 years from my first job. I became really steeped in it when I started my blog. And I've been doing my blog now for 13 years I can't do the math right now, but I started in 20 every month, personally. It's a struggle sometimes. I'm like, my God, it's the end of the month. I've written on the last day at 59. I've posted my blog. I did not want to miss that.
I respect that level of commitment. I really do.
Yeah.
I also like as well that, what you said really demonstrates that even someone declining an invite which many people would thought as a rejection, when it's done, when it's not just done generically, when it's like a considered response,
yes,
it's still valuable to you.
Absolutely.
And potentially even shows, okay, well, it might be worth taking some of that and trying again later on. Or so
absolutely.
Absolutely. Stuff like that stays with you. I had an application for something last year that I got rejected for, but the response was so considered. I actually felt really good about it. It was like, all right, I understood exactly why I didn't get it, and what it gave me some things to work on. I thought that was really valuable. One thing I do want to make sure we get to, if it's okay, with before we wrap up this very, very interesting conversation, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you are helping to prepare the next generation of business leaders at the Lagos Business School, and what you see, like what inspires you or gives you hope for the future for them, with them.
Okay, so that's a fantastic question. And more and more, we are getting requests on leadership development and communication. And I think in addition to all the skills that the leaders have, I think it's critical that they take their communication skills seriously, and that they either do some training or they just get better acquainted, because the ability for them to be able to communicate well will translate into business results. I have a very good, I think, research findings, and I can remember. So when I was writing my book, I came across this research by the Ketchum Leadership Communication Monitor Group. Yeah. And they did some research in 2014 and released the report. So they analyzed the perceptions of 6,500 people across 13 countries on the link between effective communication and great leadership. And they came up with different points, but two caught my attention. So the first, they realized that open communication was important to effective leadership. And communication was ranked the top attribute at that time. 74% believing that open communication was essential to great leadership. 74, so that's significant. Meanwhile, I think I have it here. 29% felt that the leaders were not communicating effectively. Yeah. So there was like a 45 points gap between the expectation and delivery. To me, that was, wow, that was really, really important. Another really important point that they uncovered was that leadership communication directly impacted the bottom line. Leadership communication, yeah, with 61% of the people surveyed boycotting the company's products and all that because of poor leadership. Is to also communicate, yeah. To internally, they have to see the communication. They have to feel that the communication is open, and then your actions have to match your, whatever you're saying. Yeah, so your actions have to be consistent. And of course, by the time you begin to work on your communication skills, you begin to hone emotional intelligence. You begin to know how to address some things, how to deal with opposition, how to regulate your own emotions as well to be able to put the best from forth. So you wouldn't have the knee-jerk reactions you have the CEOs waking up one day and just say, you know what, come to work every day, otherwise 60% of you are fired. Or something along those lines. Yeah, all these things end up influencing attitudes and behaviors in your organization, and also influences the perceptions people outside your organization have of you. So I think that that research was mind blowing. Ketchum, in case you're interested in it. So I remember it because it's similar to ketchup. So it's not ketchup. Yeah.
That would help me as well. I do.
Yeah, that's how I remembered it. So it's Ketchum Leadership Communication Monitor Group. So the 2014.
Worth checking out. Yeah,
it's worth checking out. Fantastic. It's thought that it was the top ranking attributes.
So this is good that you are making sure that the young business leaders coming through the Lagos Business School right now are equipped for this and ready for this before they even hit working well. Or I assume many of them are just getting started. Some of them may be doing their business degrees a bit later on. But from what you've seen and from your experience of working with these people, what are your feelings about the future of business leadership that's coming up now?
I think I'm very optimistic. I think Nigeria, we have a very vibrant young population. Yeah, I think we're over 200 million, but we have a significant percentage of the population being young. And these youngsters, they are brilliant. They're coming up with different innovations, with different tricks. So I go into those sessions, not just with the executives, but with the young ones, not just thinking, oh, I'm just going to lord over, just going to tell them that this is it, I'm an expert. I go in also learning, because they will challenge you. They will ask you, but what about this? What about this? Or shouldn't you consider? And that's what I end up learning. I end up learning as well. So I'm very optimistic about them. I do worry that sometimes if they leave the environment, the business school environment, that they may be too busy to take their communication skills seriously until such a time whereby they are compelled to do so. And by that time, it's too late. So what I hope to be able to inspire them to do is to start in the business school and to just keep with it, to keep up the momentum and not to get tired and not to drop off because by the time they leave, we're not going to be grading their writing anymore. We're not going to be grading their writing. We're not going to be grading their speaking, but these are skills that they would need at the workplace. So it is my hope and it is my mission as well that I basically plant the seed, the seed of discipline. I think that's the best way to put it, to plant the seed of discipline, communication, advancements and training, and just honing their communication skills so that they can continue the journey. It's a never-ending journey. I tell them all the time. I said, despite being in the field for a number of years, I constantly read. I'm always interested in new insight. AI came up just, I think, 3 years ago.
Yeah. Before
that, we didn't have AI, and AI is disrupting a lot of things, and it's something that we professionals and communication trainers and facilitators, there's something we should also take note of. So I'm using AI, but there are some things I don't use AI. I refuse to use AI, for my articles. But the other day, I copied and pasted an entire article into Claude. Yeah. And I just said, just do this into, into a LinkedIn infographic. And he did all the coding. And it was just fascinating. It was just coding. And I said, show me the visual. And he showed me something beautiful. I said, no, take this out, do this. And I just sat back and he just did it all for me.
Saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
That's what it should be doing.
Yeah, that's what it should be doing.
It should be making life easier for us, but not replacing. Not replacing it.
There's a fine line.
Yeah, my biggest fear, well, I maybe should be bigger for this, but one of my fears with AI is that it's and could end up being the death of creativity for people.
Yes.
If because AI has been scraping other people's creativity and using that and sharing out to us all and democratizing creativity, but if it takes away the need for creatives, we're not going to get new creativity. We're going to be stuck in a rut of creativity. That's one of the things coming in.
Yes, I worry that eventually there'll be a lot of books written by AI.
No, already happening.
Yeah, it's already happening. But then there would still be a demand. In fact, I dare say there'll be more of a demand for that human touch and that human element. Flawed.
I hope that's the way it goes, Lucille. I really do. We know your book wasn't written by AI, and you have an influencer therapist that covers a lot of the things we've talked about today and more. Tell us a little bit about how people can get hold of the book or get in contact with you if they want to find out more.
Okay, so I'm on LinkedIn basically every other day. Yeah, but they could also send me an email. So lucille@lucilleossai.com. Visit my website. Ton of information with a link to my blog that has a lot of articles, free articles on different aspects of communication. So that would be good. My book is available Amazon, Waterstone, basically multiple retailers, libraries in about 6 continents. And this is what it looks like.
Awesome. Well, there will be links for all of these, everything you mentioned, links in the show notes, linked in the YouTube description. So go and take a look there and just click on one of those links and decide which one you want, whether it's reach out on LinkedIn, whether check out the website or shoot an email.
Yeah.
Pick one and
connect with me. I'm always happy to learn about, the greatest emails or the most valuable emails to me are people that are, okay, I maybe read your blog or I attended your whatever training or I went on your blog and I took something away and I implemented it and this is the result. I think that is, but that's what's.
And if you're going to send an email, get to the point, right?
Absolutely. I would read it. Trust me, I would read it. But it does sound people to get to the point. Yeah.
Lucille, it's been an absolute delight to have you on the show and you shared so much good information. You've given me some things to think about as well. Thank you for coming and sharing your expertise with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Here's the truth then. Your voice is your power. Lucille reminded us that influence isn't reserved for executives or extroverts. It's built by anyone willing to show up, speak clearly, and write with purpose. So don't wait to be noticed. Decide today to communicate with clarity, courage, and consistency. And if this episode gave you something to think about, maybe share it with someone who needs to hear this. And make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss these conversations. Because the world doesn't change when you stay quiet, it changes when you speak up. See you next time.